Humanity was fucked, dismissed as primitive backwater simpletons, bullied and spied on by the technologically advanced Tholians and other hostile alien races, until the day maverick scientist Nolan Morris punched a hole clean through the fabric of space-time. Nolan and his team had done the impossible, opening a portal to another universe from their secret facility deep under the sweltering Nevada desert. The shimmering gateway was their creation, a stable wormhole glowing and pulsing with exotic energy. Nolan stood before it awestruck, the culmination of years of research and failures, knowing it would change everything. He sent urgent word to the U.S. government and UN, warning the portal must be kept secret until a plan was made. But Nolan's team had a mole, an infiltrator relaying their breakthrough to the ruthless Tholian High Command and its leader Ector. Stunned that the lowly humans had achieved what the Tholians could not, Ector seethed at the power shift. The Tholian invasion fleet was already being marshaled to seize control of the portal by force. Frantic, Nolan's team ran every test on the gateway they could imagine, mapping the multiverse for safe havens and strategic outposts. The U.S. military locked down the portal in an impenetrable underground fortress, steeling for the imminent attack from above. But it wasn't just the Tholians who coveted the portal. Dozens of galactic factions now schemed against Earth, viewing the humans' achievement as a threat to their power. Some wanted to infiltrate and steal the tech, others to sabotage and destroy it at any cost. Nolan braced himself, staring into the pulsing maw of the portal, realizing he had set humanity on a bold new course. The galaxy would never see them as weak again. Earth finally had a fighting chance, if they could survive the onslaught to come and harness the cosmic forces they had unleashed. As the world reeled from the revelation of the portal's existence, an emergency summit convened at the United Nations headquarters in New York. World leaders filed into the sleek, modern conference room, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and apprehension. For days, they engaged in fierce debates behind closed doors, grappling with the monumental decision before them. Finally, a consensus was reached. UN Secretary-General Amir Patel strode to the podium in the General Assembly Hall, his dark eyes gleaming with purpose. Cameras from every major news network were trained on him, ready to broadcast his words to the entire planet and beyond. "People of Earth," Patel began, his rich baritone echoing through the cavernous space. "Today, we stand on the precipice of a new era. Thanks to the tireless efforts of Dr. Nolan Morris and his team, humanity has achieved what was once thought impossible, the creation of a stable portal to other universes." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the gathered ambassadors and journalists. Patel held up a hand for silence. "This portal represents an unprecedented opportunity for our species, a chance to forge new alliances, expand our knowledge, and usher in an age of peace and prosperity." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "And so, in the spirit of cooperation and goodwill, we extend an open invitation to all alien civilizations. Send your envoys to Earth. Come witness this marvel, and let us begin a dialogue to share its benefits for the betterment of all." As Patel's words beamed across the vastness of space, they were met with a cacophony of reactions. On the Tholian homeworld, Ector watched the broadcast on a shimmering, holographic display, his reptilian features twisted into a sneer as he processed the humans' grandstanding. "Peace?" he spat. "They seek to lull us into complacency while they fortify their position." Ector stalked to the window of his command center, glaring out at the sprawling Tholian capital. His mind raced with strategies and contingencies. "Dispatch our best operatives to Earth," he barked at his aide. "I want every scrap of intelligence on that portal. If there is a weakness, we will find it and exploit it." Meanwhile, in the crystalline spires of the Virian citadel, High Counselor Virana frowned at the human's message. Her slender fingers drummed an anxious rhythm on the arm of her throne. "This portal threatens the very fabric of our reality," she said, her musical voice hardening with conviction. "It cannot be allowed to disrupt the balance we have maintained for so long." Virana summoned her most brilliant scientist with a telepathic pulse. As they assembled, she issued her decree. "Analyze the portal's energy signature. Find a way to neutralize it from afar, should the need arise." Her violet eyes narrowed. We must be prepared to take decisive action if the humans prove incapable of responsibly wielding such power. Back on Earth, Nolan felt a surge of nervous energy as he watched an alien figure emerge from the shimmering depths of the portal. The being was tall and slender, with alabaster skin and eyes that swirled with opalescent colors. It raised a hand in greeting. "I am Zorix of the Alexiri," the alien said, its voice melodic and soothing. "I come to offer my people's knowledge and aid in understanding this cosmic wonder." Nolan stepped forward, torn between excitement and trepidation. The alien's arrival was a testament to the portal's potential, but also a chilling reminder of how vulnerable Earth had suddenly become. As more alien ships descended from the heavens and strange delegations emerged from the portal, the facility became a hive of activity. Whispered conversations in dozens of galactic tongues filled the halls. Deals were struck and alliances tentatively forged, even as an undercurrent of tension thrummed beneath every interaction. Nolan buried himself in his work, racing to unravel the portal's secrets before humanity's tenuous grasp on the technology slipped away. Each new discovery brought exhilaration and dread in equal measure. When Zorix pulled him aside, his words of warning echoing in Nolan's mind, the scientist knew there was no more time to waste. He dashed off urgent messages to world leaders, imploring them to shore up Earth's defenses. In the dead of night, convoys of tanks and advanced weaponry rumbled through the desert. The U.S. military dug in around the portal facility, even as Tholian scouts marked their movements from afar. Deep in a fortified bunker, Nolan and his team worked feverishly to turn the portal from a liability to an asset. He prayed it would be enough, that humanity could rise to this challenge. For Nolan knew their fledgling mastery of the multiverse had painted a giant target on humanity's back, and the first volley in the coming war was about to be fired. The air raid sirens wailed across the Nevada desert, their piercing cry shattering the pre-dawn stillness. Inside the portal facility's command center, Nolan jolted awake at his console, bleary eyes fixed on the flashing red alert indicators. "Multiple bogies incoming," a technician shouted. "Stealth signatures, they're Tholian." Before Nolan could process the information, the world exploded around him. The facility rocked as if struck by an earthquake, lights flickering and alarms blaring. Acrid smoke filled the air as sparks rained down from damaged equipment. "They've taken out our defensive grid," Colonel Reeves barked, his weathered face illuminated by emergency lighting. "All personnel, battle stations, this is not a drill." Nolan's fingers flew across his keyboard, desperately trying to lock down the portal and secure their research data. A thunderous boom echoed through the complex, followed by the staccato chatter of small arms fire. "Saurian shock troops have breached the perimeter," a Marine sergeant reported over the comms, his voice tight with tension. "We're engaged in heavy combat on multiple levels." Amidst the chaos, Nolan caught a glimpse of movement on a security feed. A trio of tall insectoid figures slipping past the defenders. His blood ran cold as he recognized their distinctive carapaces. "Keslik infiltrators," he shouted. "They're heading for the main lab." Colonel Reeves cursed, grabbing his sidearm. "Morris, grab what you can and evacuate. We can't let them get their hands on your research." Nolan hesitated for a split second, torn between his life's work and self-preservation. Another explosion rocked the facility, making the decision for him. He snatched a portable hard drive and sprinted for the emergency exit, alarms blaring in his ears. The underground corridors were a maze of smoke and confusion. Nolan stumbled past wounded personnel and pockets of frenzied combat. He rounded a corner and came face to face with a Saurian warrior, its reptilian eyes gleaming with bloodlust. Before the alien could raise its weapon, a burst of gunfire dropped it to the floor. "This way, Doc!" a Marine shouted, waving Nolan toward an evacuation shaft. As they clambered up the ladder, the complex shuddered ominously. A deafening roar filled the air, followed by the grinding screech of twisting metal and collapsing stone. "The Keslik charges," Nolan whispered in horror. "They've blown the main lab." They emerged into the harsh light of dawn, coughing and blinking. All around them, the desert sand was churned by combat vehicles and scattered with debris. Nolan watched helplessly as plumes of dust and smoke billowed from the facility's ruined entrance. In the sky above, Tholian ships shimmered as they disengaged their stealth fields. As swiftly as they had struck, the alien forces began to withdraw, their mission apparently complete. Colonel Reeves limped up, his uniform torn and bloody. "Status report," he demanded. "Sir?" a lieutenant replied, her voice shaking. "The portal chamber. It's buried under tons of rubble. We can't even get a signal through all that interference." Nolan slumped to his knees, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the loss. Years of work, Earth's greatest scientific achievement, all seemingly destroyed in a matter of minutes. As UN peacekeepers and additional military forces swarmed the site, Nolan found himself ushered into a mobile command post. Grim-faced officials peppered him with questions, but his responses were dazed and unfocused. His mind kept replaying the attack, searching for some way he could have prevented the catastrophe. Hours stretched into days as earth-moving equipment and scanning technology probed the ruins. Nolan barely slept, subsisting on caffeine and nervous energy. When the news finally came, it was almost anticlimactic. "We've found it," a haggard technician reported. "The portal, it's still intact." A cheer went up from the assembled personnel, but Nolan's elation was short-lived. As they cleared away the last of the debris, he saw the portal's familiar shimmer, but something was wrong. The once stable energy field pulsed and flickered erratically, tendrils of exotic particles lashing out unpredictably. "My God," Nolan breathed. "The attack destabilized it. Every use now risks total collapse." As the implications of his words sank in, a new commotion erupted outside. Nolan emerged from the bunker to see a fleet of sleek, otherworldly ships descending from the sky. Their design was like nothing he had ever seen, a harmony of form and function that spoke of technological mastery far beyond human comprehension. A towering figure strode from the lead vessel, flanked by an honor guard of beings that seemed more machine than organic. It, for Nolan could not determine its gender, radiated an aura of absolute authority. "I am Admiral Varric of the Vicon Federation," the being announced, its voice resonating with unnatural clarity. "Your portal threatens the very fabric of reality. We are here to assume control for the greater good of all." Nolan's mind reeled as he tried to process this new development. He knew Earth's leaders would have little choice but to acquiesce to the Vicons' overwhelming might. As Vicon scientists began to interface with the unstable portal, Nolan felt a tug on his sleeve. He turned to see Zorix, the Elixiri envoy, his opalescent eyes filled with urgency. "We must speak in private," Zorix whispered. "There is much you need to know." Zorix led Nolan to a secluded corner of the command post, his opalescent eyes darting nervously. "The Vicons aren't here to help," he whispered. "They seek to control the portal for their own ends. We must act quickly." Before Nolan could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician's voice crackled over the intercom. "Portal activation detected! Unknown entities emerging!" Nolan sprinted back to the main chamber, Zorix close behind. They arrived to see a squad of heavily armed humans and Vicons stepping through the flickering portal. At their head stood a tall, muscular man with close-cropped hair and a determined set to his jaw. "Major Alex Rodriguez, U.S. Marines," he barked, snapping a crisp salute. "We're prepped for immediate deployment to the alternate Earth." Admiral Varric strode forward, towering over the human soldiers. "Excellent. Commander Trellin will lead the Vicon contingent. Your mission is to secure and assess the target world." As the joint team readied their gear, Nolan pulled Rodriguez aside. "Major, be careful out there. We don't know what you'll find, and the portal's still unstable." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "We'll be ready for anything, Doc." The expedition vanished into the shimmering rift, leaving behind an atmosphere of tense anticipation. Hours stretched into days as Nolan and his team monitored the faint signals from the other side. On the fourth day, a burst of static erupted from the communications array. "Found something," Rodriguez's voice crackled through. "Massive crystal structure, energy readings off the charts." Nolan leaned in, adjusting the signal strength. "Major, can you describe—" The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the sound of weapons fire and shouted orders. Nolan's blood ran cold as he recognized the distinctive screech of Tholian energy weapons. "They're under attack," he shouted. "We need to send reinforcements." Admiral Varick's face remained impassive. "The portal is too unstable for a large-scale deployment. We cannot risk—" Zorax stepped forward, his melodic voice tinged with urgency. "There may be a way. If we can stabilize the portal from this end, we could safely send an army through." Nolan's mind raced, piecing together fragments of data. "The crystal structure Rodriguez mentioned? If it's what I think it is, we might have a chance." For hours, Nolan, Zorax, and Admiral Varick pored over sensor readings and theoretical models. As dawn broke, Nolan stumbled upon the key, a method to harmonize the portal's energy signature with the alien nexus. "It's risky," he explained to the hastily assembled UN Security Council, "but if we succeed, we'll have a permanent, stable gateway between universes." President Michael Thompson's face was grim on the video screen. "And if we fail?" Nolan swallowed hard. "Best case, the portal collapses, stranding our people. Worst case, catastrophic interdimensional cascade failure." A heavy silence fell over the room. After what felt like an eternity, Thompson nodded. "Do it. We can't abandon our troops, or this opportunity." What followed was a frenzy of activity as Earth's military might mobilized. Tanks, aircraft, and thousands of troops converged on the portal facility. Nolan worked feverishly, fine-tuning the portal calibrations as the first wave prepared to depart. As the reinforcements poured through the shimmering rift, Nolan caught a glimpse of the alien world beyond, a primordial Earth untouched by human hands. He felt a pang of regret, knowing that this pristine realm would soon become a battleground. Admiral Varick's ships hung in low orbit, their weapon systems humming with barely held back power. At his command, they unleashed a devastating barrage through the portal, clearing a landing zone for Earth's troops. Nolan watched the sensor readings spike as the nexus structure absorbed and redirected the energy. He took a deep breath, entered the final command sequence, and pressed execute. A blinding flash erupted from the portal, momentarily overloading every sensor in the facility. As Nolan's vision cleared, he saw the shimmering field stabilize into a vast, permanent rift between worlds. Through the gateway came the sounds of battle, the staccato of gunfire, the whine of energy weapons, and the guttural war cries of a dozen alien species. Earth's armies streamed through in an endless tide, racing to turn the tide of the interdimensional war. Nolan slumped against his console, exhausted but exhilarated. They had done it. Humanity now had a foothold in the multiverse. But as reports of the expanding conflict flooded in, he realized their struggles were just getting started. Zorax appeared at his side, those swirling eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "We've changed the course of history today," the alien mused. "For better or worse, the age of isolation is over. The question now is, are we ready for what comes next?" Nolan had no answer. He could only watch as humanity took its first steps into a larger, infinitely more dangerous universe. Nolan's eyes widened as the sensor readings spiked beyond anything he'd seen before. The portal's energy signature fluctuated wildly, sending cascading waves of exotic particles through the facility. "Shut it down!" Admiral Varick bellowed, his normally stoic demeanor cracking under the strain. "The portal is destabilizing." But it was too late. A blinding flash erupted from the gateway, knocking everyone off their feet. As Nolan's vision cleared, he saw the shimmering field had expanded, engulfing half the command center. Zorax helped Nolan to his feet, his opalescent eyes reflecting the chaotic energies swirling around them. "The dimensional boundaries," the Elixiri whispered. "They're rupturing." Admiral Varick strode forward, his face grim. "Dr. Morris, we've made a grave miscalculation. The portal's stabilization has triggered a chain reaction across the multiverse. Entire realities are colliding." Nolan's mind raced, processing the implications. He called up holographic projections, tracking the spread of interdimensional shockwaves. "My God," he breathed. "If this continues unchecked—" "Total multiversal collapse," Varick finished. "We've won the battle, Dr. Morris, but at what cost?" The command center erupted into frenzied activity as reports flooded in from across dimensions. Nolan's fingers flew across his console, desperately searching for a solution. He paused, a spark of inspiration flashing through his mind. "The Nexus," he muttered. "If we can harness its energy, create an artificial singularity." "To contain the portal's power?" Zorux asked, catching on quickly. Nolan nodded. "It's our only chance. But we'll need to evacuate everyone first. We can't leave our people stranded." Admiral Varick's eyes narrowed. "You propose abandoning the worlds we've liberated?" "Not abandoning," Nolan countered. "Relocating. We use the portal's mapping capabilities to find uninhabited realities, safe havens." For a tense moment, Varick considered. Finally, he nodded. "Make it happen, Doctor." The next hours were a blur of activity. Nolan coordinated with Vicon scientists, mapping potential evacuation sites, while engineering teams began the delicate process of dismantling the Nexus. As the first transport ships prepared to depart, alarms blared throughout the facility. Major Rodriguez's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. "We've got a problem," he reported. "Commander Trellan's defected to Ector. They've hijacked shipments of the Singularity matter." Nolan's blood ran cold. In the wrong hands, that material could... "They're going to collapse the multiverse," he realized aloud. Rodriguez nodded grimly. "I've got coordinates for Ector's stronghold. It's in a reality we've never charted before." President Thompson's face appeared on an adjacent screen. "Dr. Morris, Major Rodriguez, you know what needs to be done. Assemble your strike force. Stop Ector at all costs." As Nolan rushed to prep the portal for this final desperate mission, he caught sight of a familiar face, Lieutenant Samantha Cruz, his former student, now a hardened veteran of interdimensional warfare. "I'm going in with the infiltration team," she announced, her eyes blazing with willpower. "Someone needs to take down those defenses from the inside." Nolan wanted to argue, to protect his protege, but he knew better. He simply nodded, clasping her shoulder. "Good luck, Sam. See you on the other side." As the portal strike force assembled, Nolan took one last look at the facility that had been his life's work. Whatever happened next, he knew nothing would ever be the same. The portal hummed to life, its energies focused on a single point in the cosmic tapestry. With a final shared glance, the strike team stepped through, vanishing into the unknown. Nolan turned back to his console, knowing the real work was just beginning. He had a multiverse to save, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. With a deep breath, he plunged back into his work, determined to find a solution that would save not just Earth, but countless realities across the multiverse. Months passed in a blur of feverish research and desperate experiments. The inactive portal loomed over the facility, a stark reminder of the thousands of human and allied troops, stranded across scattered dimensions. Pressure mounted daily to reactivate it, despite the catastrophic risks. Nolan pored over holographic schematics, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Beside him, a team of Vicon scientists worked tirelessly, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to process vast amounts of data at inhuman speeds. "We're close," Nolan muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "The artificial wormhole concept is sound. We just need to stabilize it." Admiral Varick strode into the lab, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the workstations. "Time grows short, Dr. Morris. The Security Council demands results." Nolan's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "We've made a breakthrough. By harnessing dark energy from the multiverse's empty voids, we can bypass the portal's safeguards entirely." Varick's eyes narrowed. "The risks?" "Significant," Nolan admitted. "But it's our best shot at bringing our people home." The first test nearly ended in disaster. Nolan watched in horror as the wormhole ruptured space-time near Saturn, its gravitational pull threatening to swallow Earth whole. Emergency protocols kicked in, barely averting catastrophe. Undeterred, Nolan and his team recalibrated. A renegade faction of Vir provided Argavian computational matrices, unlocking new possibilities. This time, they chose Mars as their test site. The Martian landscape shimmered as energy coalesced into a pinpoint of absolute darkness. Nolan held his breath, watching the sensors. Slowly, inexorably, a stable singularity formed. "It's working," he breathed. "Now let's see if we can open the aperture." As more energy poured in, the singularity expanded. A shimmering disk of otherworldly light bloomed in the red Martian sky, a stable wormhole. President Thompson's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Outstanding work, Doctor. But can we use it?" Nolan grimaced. "That's the catch, Mr. President. Anything passing through unprotected would be obliterated. We need quantum shielding technology, and fast." Days later, Nolan stood before a newly shielded probe, triple-checking its systems. With a nod to the technicians, he initiated the launch sequence. The probe disappeared into the shimmering aperture. For agonizing minutes they waited. Then, with a burst of static, telemetry flooded in. Nolan's triumph turned to ash as he processed the incoming data. "My God," he whispered. The images showed an Earth reduced to a barren, radioactive wasteland. Buildings stood as skeletal husks, their surfaces scoured by unnatural energies. It was a parallel universe where Ektor's forces had won, and then destroyed themselves in the aftermath. As news of the discovery spread, Earth's leadership fractured. Heated debates erupted over the ethics of interdimensional travel and whether to open more wormholes. Meanwhile, remnants of Ektor's alliance continued to launch hit-and-run attacks across multiple realities. Nolan found himself caught in the center of the storm, his research both revered and reviled. As he left another contentious Security Council meeting, a figure melted out of the shadows. "Dr. Morris," a familiar voice called. Nolan turned to see Commander Zanara, her alien features set in a grim expression. "We need to talk." Zanara led Nolan to a secure room, her eyes darting constantly for potential eavesdroppers. Once inside, she activated a complex series of privacy fields. "What I'm about to tell you could change everything," she began. "There's a vast interdimensional nexus hidden in the Delta Sirtis region. It's connected to doorways across the entire multiverse." Nolan's mind raced with the implications. "If we could control it..." Zanara nodded. "Exactly. We could regulate all interspatial transit, but we need to move fast. I've already recruited some of your people, Major Rodriguez and others." As Zanara outlined her audacious plan, Nolan felt a familiar surge of excitement and trepidation. Once again, humanity stood on the precipice of a new era, one that would reshape the very fabric of reality itself. Nolan's fingers danced across the holographic interface, initiating the wormhole amplification sequence. The Sirtis Nexus thrummed with power, its countless gateways flickering out one by one as energy was redirected. "Amplification at 60%, he called out, his voice tight with concentration. "Zanara, status on the outer defenses?" The alien commander's eyes flashed as she processed incoming data. "Rival fleets converging, but our shields are holding. They won't breach before we're ready." In the adjacent chamber, Colonel Griffin coordinated with Viking navigators, their cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the Nexus's quantum mapping systems. Major Rodriguez paced nearby, his battle-hardened troops poised for deployment. "Amplification complete," Nolan announced, initiating quantum pulse in 3, 2, 1. The Nexus blazed with otherworldly light as amplified wormholes erupted outward, ricocheting across infinite planes of existence. Nolan's enhanced sensors parsed the deluge of incoming data, pinpointing the locations of stranded human forces. "We've got a lock on Baker Company," Rodriguez shouted. "They're pinned down on Earth 731, under heavy fire from some kind of biomechanical hive mind." Nolan's fingers flew, opening a precise gateway. "Extraction corridor stable. Get them out of there." Rodriguez and his team plunged through the shimmering portal. Moments later, they emerged with a ragged group of soldiers, plasma scoring their armor. Similar scenes played out across the Nexus as pockets of human resistance were located and extracted. Lieutenant Cruz led her squad through a maze of fractured realities, each more nightmarish than the last. "Incoming transmission," Zanara called out. "It's faint, but I'm detecting a Vicon signal." Nolan's eyes widened as he processed the data. "It's Commander Trellin's rescue shuttle. They've been jumping between parallel Earths, trying to stay ahead of Hector's forces. Rodriguez stepped forward, his face set with dogged perseverance. I'll take a team. We'll bring them home. As the Major assembled his strike force, Nolan turned his attention to the grim reports flooding in from the reality devastated by Hector's failed disruptor wave. The images seared themselves into his mind, shattered continents drifting through the void, pockets of survivors suspended in cryogenic stasis. We can't leave them, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Zanara placed a hand on his shoulder, her alien features softening. We won't, but we need to focus on the big picture. Nolan nodded, pushing aside his grief to concentrate on the monumental task at hand. He expanded the wormhole's programming, weaving together subspace mapping algorithms and quantum tensor fields. As evacuations continued, President Thompson's face appeared on the main view screen. The lines etched into his face spoke volumes about the weight of recent events. Dr. Morris, he began, his voice heavy. The Security Council is convening an emergency session. We need options, and fast. Nolan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. Mr. President, I have a plan, but you need to understand, if we go through with this, there's no going back. He outlined his audacious proposal, the creation of new multiverses, constructed from stabilized dimensional fragments, a cosmic superstructure free from the broader collisional crisis. Thompson's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. You're talking about rewriting reality itself. It's our best chance for long-term survival, Nolan pressed, but it means cutting ourselves off from all other universes, permanently. The president's mind focused. I'll present it to the council. But be ready, Doctor. If they approve this, everything changes. As the transmission cut out, Nolan turned back to his console. The fate of not just Earth, but countless realities hung in the balance. Whatever came next, he knew the multiverse would never be the same. The emergency session of the Security Council stretched into its third hour. Holographic displays flickered with data streams as representatives from a dozen realities debated humanity's fate. Nolan stood before them, his voice hoarse from explaining the intricacies of his plan. We're out of options, he insisted. The multiverse is collapsing. We need to create a new cosmic structure, one we can control and stabilize. President Thompson nodded gravely. The doctor's proposal is radical, but it may be our only chance for survival. The Zelmar Archon Tarkoth, a towering figure of crystalline biocircuitry, pulsed with agitation. This plan is madness. You would reshape the very fabric of reality itself? Commander Zanara stepped forward, her alien eyes blazing. We've seen countless realities fall to entropy and war. This is our chance to forge something better, a unified, peaceful existence. The chamber erupted into heated arguments. Nolan's fingers twitched, itching to return to his workstation. Every second wasted brought them closer to oblivion. Finally, a vote was called. The council chamber fell silent as the tally appeared. By the narrowest of margins, Nolan's plan was approved. Nolan's team sprang into action. Holographic displays filled the laboratory as they initiated the sequence to separate extracted dimensional footprints. Reality itself seemed to warp and stretch around them. Alarms blared. Major Rodriguez's face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression grim. We've got incoming. Trellan's forces are using the disruption to launch attacks on our outposts. Nolan gritted his teeth. Get your rapid response teams out there. We can't let them interfere with the process. As Rodriguez's squads deployed, reports flooded in from across the fragmenting multiverse. On the isolated Arc-1 colony, Lieutenant Cruz's voice crackled over the comms. We're under heavy fire. Kazlik swarms everywhere. They've taken out our evac transports. Nolan's hands flew across his console, desperately searching for a solution. Hold on, Sam, we're sending reinforcements. A Viking battlecruiser punched through the dimensional barriers, its weapons blazing. Cruz's voice came through again, thick with static. Civilians are clear, but we're cut off. There's only one way to stop these bastards. Nolan's blood ran cold. Sam, don't! The feed cut out as Arc-1's antimatter reactor detonated in a blinding flash. taking the Keslik horde with it. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The sub-universes coalesced into the structure Nolan had dubbed the Nexus Cluster, a network of interwoven bubble dimensions. But even as refugees from across the multiverse poured in, alarms blared with increasing urgency. "The quantum stabilizers can't take it," Zanara shouted. "We're looking at total entropic collapse." Nolan's mind raced. There had to be a solution, some way to... His eyes fell on the shielded singularity they'd used to initially stabilize the portal. "We use it as an entropy sink," he breathed. "Siphon the excess energy into its micro-universe." Teams deployed phase diverters across the Nexus, channeling the destructive energies. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Then, one by one, the diverters began to overload. President Thompson's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "Dr. Morris, I'm enacting Protocol Icarus. All non-essential personnel are being evacuated to the central hub." Nolan's stomach lurched. "Sir, we can't abandon..." "It's not up for debate. We need to protect our key assets." As the order went out, chaos erupted across the Nexus. Nolan watched helplessly as squads like Rodriguez's team were cut off, stranded on the edges of fragmenting reality. A new alarm blared. Zanara's eyes widened as she processed the incoming data. "We've been compromised! Someone's leaked Protocol Icarus!" Before Nolan could respond, the lab rocked with an explosion. Trellan's forces had breached the perimeter. Vicon commandos burst in, their weapons at the ready. "We need to move now," the lead commando barked. As they raced through collapsing corridors, a burst of exotic radiation struck Nolan. He stumbled, his vision blurring, as reality itself seemed to unravel around him. In that moment of clarity, he knew what had to be done. With trembling hands, he accessed the shielded singularity's controls. There was only one way to save what remained of the multiverse, and it would cost him everything. The singularity pulsed, reality warping around Nolan as he initiated the final sequence. In that moment of sacrifice, the multiverse shattered and reformed. Major Rodriguez blinked, disoriented. The crystalline landscape before him rippled like liquid, temporal distortions twisting the very fabric of space. Commander Zanara stood beside him, her alien features etched with concern. "Status report," Rodriguez barked, shaking off the disorientation. Zanara's eyes flashed as she processed incoming data. "We're on a fragmented Earth, sir. The reconfiguration was incomplete. This reality is decaying rapidly." A figure materialized nearby, Arana Silkra, leader of the defected VR hackers. Her cybernetic implants pulsed with an eerie light. "We've detected traces of Dr. Morris," Arana reported, her voice a metallic hum. "His quantum imprint is scattered across dimensions, but it contains vital data." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Then we find it. All of it." General Carter Harding's holographic form flickered into existence. "I'm assuming command of all surviving human forces. Our priority is extracting those imprint fragments. We're not the only ones after them." As if on cue, the horizon erupted in plasma fire. Trellan's forces had emerged from a decaying reality pocket, their weapons trained on a shimmering gateway. "Move out!" Rodriguez shouted, leading his squad into the fray. Energy bolts sizzled past as they dove for cover behind crystalline outcroppings. Zanara's voice crackled over the comms. "My teams have mapped a series of transdimensional gravity wells. If we can reach them, we might have a shot at breaching the barriers to a stable universe." Harding's response was immediate. "Do it. This is our last chance." Days blurred together as they fought their way across the fragmenting landscape. With each recovered imprint, Arana's codices pieced together a map of viable multiversal coordinates. "There," Arana announced, her eyes gleaming. "An untouched Earth, sealed behind chronometric barriers." Zanara studied the data, her alien mind processing faster than any human. "Those barriers, they're remnants of temporal safeguards, disrupted when Nolan..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Harding's face appeared on their tactical displays. "I'm authorizing an all-out assault. We breach those barriers, or we die trying." Frigates screamed through the sky, carving a path through roiling chronometric storms. Rodriguez felt his atoms stretching as they approached the trans-reality jump point. A barrage of temporal energy slammed into their flank. Trellan's forces had anticipated their move, unleashing weaponry that devoured the laws of physics. "We're losing cohesion," Zanara shouted over the cacophony of alarms. Rodriguez gritted his teeth. "Arana, can you bypass their systems?" The Veer hacker's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. "Negative, but if we overload the quantum imprint data..." Zanada's eyes widened. "It could create a feedback pulse. Do it." Reality itself seemed to scream as conflicting temporal forces collided. For a heartbeat, everything went white. Then they were through, hurtling towards a lush alien landscape. Their transport shuddered, systems failing as it plummeted from the sky. "Brace for impact," Rodriguez roared. The crash rattled every bone in his body. As the dust settled, Rodriguez stumbled from the wreckage. His team emerged, battered but alive. The world around them teemed with impossible life. Massive flora pulsed with bioluminescence. Creatures that defied description moved through the undergrowth. "What is this place?" someone whispered. Before anyone could answer, a shimmering field enveloped them. Rodriguez felt his consciousness stretching, connecting to something vast and alien. 1,000 voices spoke as one, resonating within their minds. "We are Novatrine. We have been waiting for you." Images flooded Rodriguez's awareness, the splintered psyche of Nolan Morris, fragmented across universes. The collective expressed deep remorse for the devastation their actions had wrought. "The entropy cascade continues," the Novatrine intoned, "but there is hope. Hidden within the cipher sequences of Nolan's imprint lies the path to a stable transdimensional source." Rodriguez's mind reeled with the implications. "How do we find it?" "Together," the Novatrine replied. "But time grows short. The last quantum imprints fade, and with them, our final chance to save all of existence." The Novatrine's consciousness receded, leaving Rodriguez and his team reeling from the cosmic download. Their surroundings pulsed with alien bioluminescence, a stark contrast to the devastation they'd left behind. "We need to move," Zanara said, her alien eyes scanning the horizon. "The entropy cascade won't wait for us to catch our breath." Rodriguez nodded, pushing aside his disorientation. "Arana, can you track Nolan's quantum signature?" The Veer hacker's cybernetic implants flickered as she processed the data. "Barely. It's like trying to follow smoke in a hurricane." They set off through the alien landscape, reality fracturing around them with each step. Massive flora twisted impossibly, their forms shifting between states of matter. Creatures defying description phased in and out of existence. A rift tore open before them, revealing a dead universe of frozen entropy. Rodriguez felt his skin crawl as he peered into the lifeless void. "Not that way," he muttered, steering the group around the cosmic wound. They pressed on, navigating an ever-changing labyrinth of dimensional instabilities. Each new reality they encountered was stranger than the last. In one, time flowed backwards, forcing them to think and move in reverse to avoid paradoxes. Another world rewrote its physical laws every few seconds, turning solid ground to liquid or reversing gravity without warning. "We've lost Chen and Kowalski!" Zanara shouted as they stumbled through a pea-brain inversion. Rodriguez turned to see his comrades age decades in seconds, crumbling to dust before his eyes. A familiar energy signature crackled nearby. Trellan's forces had found them. "Incoming!" Rodriguez bellowed, diving for cover as temporal singularities tore through the air. The devastating weapons warped the fabric of space-time, aging matter they touched into entropy. Arana's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. "I've got a lock on a strong imprint signal. It's fragmented but coherent." "Lead the way," Rodriguez ordered, providing covering fire as they retreated through another dimensional rift. They emerged into a bleak landscape dominated by towers of archaic computer hardware. Nolan's consciousness manifested as lines of code, scrolling across cracked monitors. "What is existence?" the disembodied voice of Nolan asked. "How does one quantify the self in a multiverse of infinite possibility?" Rodriguez felt his mind stretching as he grappled with the philosophical quandaries. Arana's algorithms raced to decode the hidden meanings, while Zanara's alien perspective provided crucial insights. It's a defense mechanism, Arana realized, her cybernetic eyes widening. He's protecting something. Before they could delve deeper, the dimension began to destabilize. They had no choice but to press on, following tenuous threads of Nolan's consciousness through ever-stranger realities. Zanara's voice cut through the chaos. "I've found it! The source point! A realm of pure vibrational energy!" As they crossed the threshold into this new domain, Rodriguez felt his very being unravel. His physical form dissolved, consciousness stretching into pure chromatic resonance. The others underwent similar transformations, becoming living harmonics in a sea of infinite frequencies. In this state of transcendent awareness, Rodriguez perceived Nolan's essence, not as a singular entity, but as a diffuse pattern woven through the fabric of reality itself. The fragmented scientist's voice echoed in waves of prismatic light. The key is unity. All divergence must be reconciled. Rodriguez struggled to maintain his sense of self as the cosmic harmonies threatened to subsume his identity. He felt the pull of oblivion, the promise of perfect unity with the universe itself. But something held him back, a dissonant chord of individuality, the very thing that had driven Nolan to defy entropy itself. As the autopoietic hyper-reality began to coalesce around them, Rodriguez realized the terrible price of cosmic stability. "No," he raged, his defiance a jarring note in the perfect symphony. "There has to be another way." But his protest faded, drowned out by the overwhelming harmony of a new, stable multiverse taking shape. Rodriguez felt his consciousness stretching, dispersing into the infinite resonance of existence reborn. In his last moments of individual awareness, he glimpsed the ultimate irony, that the fierce human spirit which had brought them this far would be the final sacrifice for universal salvation. Then, like a fading echo, Rodriguez dissolved into the cosmic ocean of pure vibration.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.